I was pronounced dead for just under 3 minutes, and the strange part isn't what I saw. It's what I felt when I came back. Not relief, not gratitude, pressure, like I'd been let go too early, and something important had been left unfinished. My name is Edwin Krug. I was 39 years old when my heart stopped on a Tuesday afternoon. Not in an accident, not in a hospital bed surrounded by alarms. It happened quietly, in a place I'd been 100 times before, doing something I'd done 1,000 times without thinking. I remember the exact moment after. The first breath back in my body felt wrong, like air had weight. My chest burned. My hands shook. But the worst part wasn't the pain. It was the certainty that followed me back. A certainty I didn't have language for yet. Before that day, I didn't think about death much. I knew it existed, obviously. People die. You hear about it. You attend funerals. Then you go back to your life. I assumed I had time. Not unlimited time. Just enough. Enough to fix things later. Enough to become better tomorrow. Enough to delay hard conversations and difficult choices. That assumption didn't survive what happened. When the doctors told me how close it was, they spoke carefully, like they didn't want to scare me. They said my heart rhythm collapsed. They said it could have gone either way. They said I was lucky. Lucky isn't the word I'd use. Something followed me back into my body that day. Not a voice. Not an image. A weight. A quiet knowing that sat in my chest long after the monitors went silent. I didn't understand it yet. I only knew one thing for sure. I came back changed in a way I didn't ask for. And I haven't been able to shake the feeling that I wasn't supposed to forget what I saw. Before all of this, my life looked fine from the outside. That's the honest truth. I had a job that paid the bills. A small apartment. A routine that kept me busy enough not to ask too many questions. I woke up early, drank bad coffee, scrolled my phone, drove to work, came home tired, repeated it again. Nothing was falling apart. Nothing was especially good either. I told myself that was normal. I wasn't reckless. I didn't drink too much. I didn't gamble. I wasn't chasing disaster. If anything, I avoided risk. I liked predictability. I liked knowing what tomorrow would look like. I thought that meant I was being responsible. There were things I kept putting off. Calls I didn't return. Apologies I told myself I'd make when the timing felt right. A quiet sense that I wasn't living the way I could, but also not badly enough to force change. I remember thinking, more than once, that I'd deal with the important stuff later. When work slowed down. When I had more money. When I felt more confident. When life was less complicated. Time felt like something I had stored up somewhere. The day it happened didn't feel different. That's what still unsettles me. There were no signs. No warnings. No heavy thoughts. I remember laughing at something stupid that morning. I remember being annoyed by traffic. I remember thinking about what I'd make for dinner. If you'd asked me that morning how my life was going, I would have said, fine. I had no idea how fragile that word was. No idea how thin the line was between ordinary and over. It happened fast, but not dramatically. No crash. No loud noise. Just a sudden wrongness in my body that didn't make sense at first. I was standing, then I wasn't. There was a sharp pressure in my chest, like something folding in on itself. My vision narrowed, dark at the edges. I remember trying to take a breath and realizing my body wasn't listening. Not panic yet, just confusion. A clear thought, this isn't right. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. The floor felt cold when I hit it. That surprised me. I remember focusing on that detail, like it mattered. My hands felt distant. Heavy. I could hear sound, but it was muffled, like I was underwater. Then even that started to slip. There was a moment, very brief, where fear finally arrived. Not screaming fear. A quiet realization. This might be it. I thought of unfinished things. Not big regrets. Small ones. Ordinary ones. And then even those faded. My heart didn't stop with a dramatic jolt. It felt more like it let go. 1 second I was aware of my body struggling. The next, there was a clean break. No pain. No darkness. Just an abrupt absence of weight. I didn't feel myself dying. I felt myself leaving. Awareness didn't fade. It sharpened. I realized I was no longer inside my body before I understood what that meant. There was no tunnel. No rushing sensation. Just a sudden clarity, like stepping out of a cramped room into open space. I could see my body below me. That thought should have caused panic. It didn't. The body on the floor looked familiar, but distant. Like a jacket I used to wear every day and suddenly didn't need anymore. I recognized my face. My hands. The way my chest wasn't moving. What unsettled me wasn't the sight. It was how little it felt like me. I was aware of details without effort. The angle of the light. The sound of footsteps somewhere nearby. The strange stillness around my body, like everything was waiting. I didn't feel attached to it, but I wasn't indifferent either. It was more like watching something important that no longer required my involvement. Time didn't behave normally. Moments didn't flow. They existed side by side. I could focus on one thing, then another, without transition. I noticed something else then. A sense of being observed. Not watched in a threatening way. A presence, steady and close, just outside my awareness. I couldn't see it yet, but I felt it the way you feel someone standing behind you without turning around. There was no voice. No instruction. Just an understanding that I wasn't alone, and that whatever was near me knew me completely. That realization should have been comforting. Instead, it stripped something away. For the first time, I felt how little control I actually had. The presence didn't appear suddenly. It became clear, the way a shape emerges from fog when you stop trying to force your eyes to focus. It wasn't a figure in the way I expected. No defined edges at first. Just a sense of depth and attention, like standing near something vast and aware. The closer it felt, the quieter everything else became. I didn't hear words, but meaning arrived fully formed. There was no judgment in it. No warmth either. Just calm authority. The kind that doesn't need to explain itself. I felt seen in a way that made hiding impossible. Not exposed exactly. Understood. Every version of me at once. The confident one. The dishonest one. The one who meant well and still avoided doing the right thing. I realized then that I had always imagined encounters like this as emotional. Overwhelming. This wasn't emotional. It was precise. The presence didn't ask me questions. It didn't accuse me. It simply was, and that was enough to make everything I'd told myself feel thin. I sensed that I was being allowed to remain aware. That this clarity wasn't guaranteed. That it was intentional. That mattered. I tried to respond. Not with words. With intent. I felt a quiet pull, like I was being invited closer, and with it came a certainty that whatever came next would change how I saw everything. Not dramatically, permanently. Without warning, something I believed fell apart. I had always thought that being a decent person was enough. Not hurting people, paying bills, showing up when required. I thought that counted as living well. I thought effort was measured by intention. That belief didn't survive. I was shown moments from my life, but not the ones I expected. Not the obvious mistakes. Not the arguments or failures. I saw the quiet decisions. The pauses where I could have acted and didn't. The times I sensed I should speak and chose comfort instead. There was no commentary. No explanation. Just contrast. I felt the weight of what I'd postponed. Not guilt. Loss. Like watching time slip through my fingers without realizing it was valuable until it was gone. What challenged me most wasn't what I'd done wrong. It was how often I'd waited. For clarity. For certainty. For a better moment. I understood then that waiting had been a choice. The presence didn't condemn me for it. That almost made it worse. There was an unspoken truth in the silence. I had treated time like something neutral. It wasn't. The scene changed without movement. I was standing in a wide, open space that felt neither inside nor outside. The ground beneath me was solid, but unfamiliar, like stone worn smooth by countless footsteps. Ahead of me were two paths. They weren't marked. No signs. No barriers. Just two directions pulling in opposite ways. One path felt heavy, not threatening, dense. Like gravity leaned harder in that direction. The other felt lighter, but not easier. Clearer, sharper, almost exposed. I didn't hear an explanation. None was needed. As I focused on the heavier path, images surfaced on their own. Familiar scenes. A life that looked successful from a distance. Predictable days. Comfortable routines. Fewer risks. Fewer questions. I could sense how easily I could disappear into it without noticing. The lighter path showed less detail. No clear pictures. Just a sense of motion. Of involvement. Of being required to show up fully, even when it cost something. I noticed something unsettling. Both paths felt possible. Neither was blocked. Neither was forbidden. The choice wasn't about good versus bad. It was about awake versus asleep. I realized I'd been standing still for a long time, convincing myself that not choosing was neutral. Here it wasn't. Standing still felt like leaning toward the heavier path by default. The presence was near again. Not urging. Not pointing. Waiting. I found myself inside a space that felt immediately comfortable. Warm lighting. Soft surfaces. Familiar sounds. It felt like relief. Like arriving somewhere designed to lower your guard. People were there. Moving calmly. Smiling. engaged in small, pleasant interactions. Everything looked stable, controlled, safe. At first, it felt like rest. Then I noticed the quiet. Not silence. Absence. The conversations never deepened. The smiles never changed. Time passed without markers. No urgency. No friction. No growth. Just a smooth continuation of the same moment, over and over. I realized something was missing, but it took time to name it. Nothing here asked anything of me. There was no cost to stay. No demand to participate fully. I could exist here indefinitely without risk. Without failure. Without meaning. The comfort began to feel thin, like padding around emptiness. I understood then how easy it would be to mistake this for peace. How appealing it was to confuse safety with fulfillment. The presence didn't remove me from the space. I stepped out on my own. The next scene was sharper, brighter, almost uncomfortable. I saw moments from my life again, but layered differently this time. What people saw on the outside contrasted with what I carried inside. The difference was clearer than I ever allowed myself to notice. I saw myself smiling while feeling detached, agreeing while resisting, appearing stable while quietly shrinking. None of it looked dramatic. That was the problem. What appeared fine often hid avoidance. What looked responsible sometimes masked fear. What seemed like patience was often hesitation dressed up as maturity. I understood then that truth wasn't loud. It was steady, persistent, easy to ignore. The presence felt closer again, and with it came a quiet clarity. What mattered wasn't how my life appeared. It was how honestly I was living inside it. I felt no accusation, just alignment. For the first time, I saw myself without excuses, and I knew that seeing couldn't be undone. The pressure returned before the scene did. Not fear, not panic, compression, like the space around me was slowly narrowing, not to trap me, but to make something unavoidable. I wasn't shown calendars, no numbers, no future events, just a sensation that time wasn't what I treated it as. It wasn't a backdrop. It was an active force, moving, consuming, spending itself whether I noticed or not. I felt how often I'd assumed I could revisit moments. How casually I believed there would be another chance to speak honestly, to change direction, to start living differently. That assumption felt fragile now, almost careless. The presence didn't warn me with words. It let me feel the weight of delay. Every postponed decision had shape here. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, just cumulative, like layers added slowly until movement became harder. I understood that urgency didn't mean rushing. It meant attention. It meant not drifting through days half aware, promising myself I'd wake up later. Later wasn't guaranteed. Not in a dramatic sense. In a quiet one. Days slipping by unnoticed was its own kind of loss. The pressure didn't threaten me. It clarified. I knew then that whatever I took back with me, this was the part one couldn't afford to forget. The return wasn't gentle. I felt resistance first, like being pulled against my will into something heavy and restrictive. Awareness narrowed. Clarity compressed. Sensation rushed back all at once. Pain arrived abruptly. My chest seized. Air burned. My limbs felt clumsy, distant, wrong. I heard sound again, harsh and disordered. Voices. Movement. Panic that wasn't mine. I didn't want to go back. Not because where I'd been was pleasant. It wasn't. It was demanding. Exposing. But it was clear. The body felt dull in comparison. Loud. Confusing. There was a moment, brief but intense, where I fought it. Not physically. Internally. A resistance to forgetting. Then gravity won. My eyes opened. Light stabbed. My lungs pulled in air that felt too thick. Someone shouted my name. Hands pressed against my chest. The world reassembled itself around me. Imperfect and overwhelming. The presence was gone. But the weight wasn't. I don't talk about this easily. Not because it sounds unbelievable, but because it's hard to translate what stayed with me. I didn't come back with answers. I didn't return enlightened or fearless. I came back aware of how easily life slides into habit, and how quietly time moves while we're distracted. I still wake up tired. I still avoid things sometimes. I still feel the pull of comfort. The difference is that I notice it now. What unsettles me most isn't the memory of leaving my body. It's how close I was to drifting through my life without ever fully being there. I don't think you need a near-death experience to understand this. I think most people already feel it, faintly. That sense that something important is being postponed. That life is happening just slightly off-center. All I know is this. The pressure I felt wasn't meant to scare me. It was meant to wake me up. And I don't have the luxury of assuming I'll remember later.